Hey guys, in this After Effects tutorial I'm going to show you how you can actually use the linear expression to create something like this lower thirds which animates in, but where you can also change the maximum value of your animation. So let's get started with what the linear function actually does. You might have heard of it, you might have seen tutorials. The linear function is an expression which looks at a property, sometimes a slider, and then translates that property. So the slider goes from 0 to 100, and it translates to the last two numbers. So it translates it to from 10 to 400. So you're actually saying, when my slider is moving from 0 to 100, I want this value to change from 10 to 400. So if you graph this, it's great, but what is it actually, why would you actually use a linear expression? So we're going to create a lower thirds. So we're going to start with creating a rectangle. Double click the rectangle tool to create a full screen rectangle. I'm going to twirl down here, go to a rectangle path and size it down a little. I want to use my X size to animate it in, but I need to put my anchor point on the left side. In my other tutorial I explained already how to do this, but in short, we're going to use the size property to move the anchor point. So alt click the stopwatch to go to the expression of the anchor point, and what we first need is size X equals, and then pick with the X size, and we're going to need an X. And the X will be size X. Start from there, and the line with a semicolon. The Y will be still 0, and the line, and between square brackets we're going to put X and Y, and we're going to see what happens. So the rectangle actually moved all the way to the left, which I don't like. I want to move it to the right side of the anchor point, and I want to move it half. So what we can do is put a minus here to get it to the other side, and then divide by 2 to put the anchor point on the left side of the rectangle. And now if we resize the X value, you can see that the rectangle stays still. So that's a neat little trick. The height we're going to put in 270. So we're going to move the entire shape layer somewhere around here. We're going to add some popping in text. We're going to rename this layer new bar. Just name your layers. We're going to add some text. Indiana Jones. And this is the main font, so we're gonna main title. So, and I want to animate this in without using a matte. I just want to use one layer, so I'm going to actually use a normal mask. And see if I'm putting a long letter here, like a J or a Y. I can see how far my mask needs to go to not interfere with any text. So that's nice. Give it some space. You might have a long name. And then we're going to add an animate property, the position. And we're actually gonna add the the last position or the first position you want to be in. It's always a little tricky, but it's the first position you want to be in. And we're going to scroll down here to advanced, say based on lines. And now if we change the end value, we can see that the text actually pops in. So we can animate this value and shrink our comp here to like, let's say 10 seconds. Trim comp to work area. And now we're going to animate this to 0. So now this text comes in, it's great. And we want to put in something like 66 here. This is Duik, it's great. Plug in. And now it's going really slow. Give it like 10 frames. There we go, pops in. Okay, 15 frames. There we go. So there's that. Now we're going to create the subtitle. Control D to duplicate the layer. Subtitle. Put it down. And I'm actually going to scale this down to preserve my mask ratio to the text ratio. There we go. Maybe a cheap trick, but and the Last Crusade. Subtitle, and now I'm so my size of the blue bar needs to go up. Here we go. So this is, and I might want to overshoot it. So it's not square everywhere. It's not the same margin when I overshoot it. So let's say it's going to be 980. Okay. So this is great. We have some text coming in. Press U. Let's off-center this a little. So what if we want to animate this in? We could animate the size property, of course. But what if we want to change this up? What if we want to use essential graphics to have a lower thirds that you can change on the fly, change in Premiere even, and then you want to also change the size property when it's animating in. And this is one way you can really easily use the linear expression to drive your animation. So how do we do this? Okay, we're gonna create a null layer. So we're gonna go to layer new, and we're gonna add a null object. I'm gonna name it control. I like my controls always to be on the control layer, so I know where to find it. I'm gonna add a slider to the control layer, naming it animation. And I'm going to animate this slider already. And I'm going to animate it from 0 to 100. So not doing anything already, but that's okay. And now we're going to alt-click the stopwatch next to the size property. And that's it. First, we want to create a variable for the slider control. So the slider will be equal signs, and then big whip to the slider control on the control layer. So if you don't have this open already, you can also click the control layer, and now go to your. It's going to give an error because there's no code here, which is no code sufficient for the size property. And now you can big whip from the effects control. Okay, so now we have the slider property as a variable. Now we're gonna define the x value, so the size x value will be, and here's where the linear function comes in. So we're gonna create a linear function. The linear function asks us, okay, which property should I look at, or what's the property you want to translate. We go back to our short little introduction to linear. I put in a slider, so it's gonna look. So here we're gonna the size property where we're at. We're gonna add a linear. We're gonna add a linear expression. It's gonna ask us, okay, what kind of property you want to look at, the slider. If the slider goes from 0 to 100, I need to go, or this property where the linear function is at, needs to go from 10 to 400. Let's do that. Linear function, look at the slider, and if the slider goes from 0 to 100, I need you to go from 0 to 980. Sure. 0,980. And now we're not done yet, because the size property needs 2 dimensions, and we haven't written anything down yet. So between square brackets, we're going to name x as the first value, comma 270 as the y value. I'm going to click away, and now you can see the blue bar is gone, and that's because it's immediately looked at this animation slider, and the animation slider says 0, and here we're set if the slider is at 0, the x needs to be at 0 as well. But if we move through the timeline, you can see that the bar is actually animating in. So this slider goes from 0 to 100, and the size goes from 0 to 980. And if we're offsetting the text a little bit, and we can even, that's the cool part, because this is a linear, the linear expression goes linearly from 0 to 100, and it gives the size 0 to 980. But you can actually go to the graph editor and just make this animation come to life a little bit more finesse. Hold Alt to get the tangents and give it a little more. So now it actually pops in really nice. But this is not the cool part, because what we actually wanted to do was create this so you can change the max value of the size with the animation present. And we can do that, can't do that now. So we're going to add another slider control. We're going to name it max value. Max value we're going to set to 1000. And we're going to go back to our size property and make another variable called max value. And it equals the slider we just created. And instead of the 980 we added here, we're going to copy max value and add it instead of the I want my linear expression to go from 0 to 100. If my slider goes from 0 to 100, I want this property going from 0 to 980. I want this property from 0 to max value. So now we can, with the max value, we can actually change the last keyframe, or the max, the max value of the rectangle. So if we're going to change the max value, you can see that the bar is actually growing, but the animation still works. And now comes the cool part, because we're going to go to Essential Graphics and we're going to add some of these properties to Essential Graphics. So we're going to go to the, first we're going to add the text. So we go to source text, we're going to add that to the Essential Graphics. We're going to add the subtext, subtitle to Essential Graphics. And now we're going to also add the max value to just the Essential Graphics. Now you always have to edit this range, because the range is normally set at 0 to 100. You can edit this range and set it from 0 to, let's say, 2000. So that's nice in the center. And now if we add this composition, the linear example, we're here in the linear example, to another composition. So this is, well, linear expression, example 2. So if we play this, we can see our lower thirds. If we twirl down here, we see essential properties. If we open this up, we can edit the title and edit the subtitle. So let's say Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Pretty long title. And now, if we want our text to fall inside the blue box, we can change the max value to something like this. And now if we go back to 0 and press the space bar, we can see that our animation still works, and it doesn't matter how long our text is, we can always change the max value. So I hope this gives you a good example of what you can do with the linear expressions. You can do tons more, of course, but this is one of the basics. And if you have any questions, as always, please let me know. And thank you for watching.